Chapter 1. Warp Core Malfunction. The bridge of the USS Vanguard hummed with activity, the crew's disciplined movements punctuated by the occasional beep of consoles and the ever-present thrum of the warp core. Commander Maya Chen surveyed the bustling scene from her station, her eyes missing nothing as they swept over the readouts and displays. "Report!" she called out, her voice cutting through the ambient noise with an air of quiet authority. Lieutenant Thavrin, the Andorian science officer, swiveled in her chair. "Long-range sensors detect no intelligent life signs within 100 light-years, Commander. We appear to be traversing an uncharted region of space." Maya nodded, her expression betraying nothing of the flutter of excitement she felt at the prospect of exploring the great unknown. The Federation's mandate was one of peaceful exploration and scientific discovery, but there was always an undercurrent of risk and thrill whenever the Vanguard ventured beyond the borders of the known universe. "Maintain course and keep scanning," she instructed. "I want to know the moment anything changes." A soft chime from the engineering console drew Maya's attention, and she turned to find Lieutenant Velik, the Tellarite chief engineer, scowling at his displays. "Commander," he grunted, "we're detecting a minor fluctuation in the warp core's containment field. Nothing to be concerned about yet, but I'd like to run a level 3 diagnostic, just to be safe." Maya considered his words, mentally weighing the potential risks against the need to maintain their current speed. Uncharted space was notoriously unpredictable, and a warp core malfunction could leave them stranded light years from the nearest starbase. "Make it so, Lieutenant," she said at last. "I'd rather be safe than sorry out here." Velik grunted an acknowledgement and set to work, his thick fingers dancing over the controls with a deftness that belied their size. Maya turned her attention back to the view screen, her gaze fixed on the star-speckled expanse of space that stretched out before them. The minutes ticked by, each one carrying them deeper into the unknown. Maya found her thoughts drifting to Captain Arvida, currently overseeing repairs on one of the Vanguard's shuttlecraft. The captain's passion for hands-on engineering was well known throughout the crew, and Maya couldn't help but smile at the thought of her commanding officer elbow-deep in the guts of a shuttlecraft while her first officer manned the bridge. A sudden violent lurch rocked the Vanguard, nearly throwing Maya from her seat. Alarms blared, and the acrid tang of ionized particles filled the air as emergency force fields flashed into existence around the exposed conduits. "Report!" Maya barked, her voice cutting through the cacophony like a phaser beam. "Warp core containment failure." Velik's voice was strained, his face contorted in a mask of concentration as he fought to regain control of his systems. "We're venting plasma! Initiating emergency shutdown procedures!" The deck bucked beneath Maya's feet as the Vanguard's warp engines ground to a halt, the ship's momentum carrying it forward on inertia alone. She grabbed the edge of her console, her knuckles whitening as she struggled to keep her footing. "Hull breach on decks 12 through 15, Lieutenant Thavrin called out, her voice tinged with urgency. "Emergency force fields are holding, but we've lost environmental control in those sections." Maya's mind raced, assessing the situation with lightning speed. A containment failure this severe could lead to a catastrophic warp core breach, a scenario that would not only destroy the Vanguard, but could potentially destabilize the fabric of space-time itself in this uncharted region. "All hands abandon ship," she ordered, her voice booming over the ship-wide comm system. "Repeat, all hands, abandon—" Her words were cut short as a brilliant flare of light filled the view screen, resolving into the unmistakable silhouettes of alien vessels decloaking mere kilometers from the Vanguard's battered hull. "Raise shields!" Maya barked, even as her tactical console lit up with a barrage of incoming weapons fire. "Return fire and prepare for evasive maneuvers." The bridge shuddered as the Vanguard's phaser banks lanced out, their ruby beams lancing towards the alien attackers. Maya held on grimly, her mind already working through a dizzying array of scenarios and contingencies. If they couldn't regain control of the warp core, their only hope might be to detonate it as a last-ditch weapon, a move that would almost certainly cost Maya her life, but one she was prepared to make if it meant giving her crew a chance to escape. As the battle raged on around her, Maya Chen steeled herself for the confrontation to come, her unwavering resolve burning bright in the face of overwhelming odds. Chapter 2. The Sentient Core. The Vanguard shuddered under another barrage of alien weapons fire, and Maya felt the deck plates vibrate beneath her feet. "Damage report!" she called out, her voice strained against the wail of the klaxons. "Shields at 40% and falling," Litor Thavran reported grimly. "We've lost primary phaser arrays, and the starboard nacelle has taken a direct hit. Warp capabilities are offline." Maya's jaw tightened. Without warp drive, they were effectively sitting ducks against this relentless assault. She turned to the engineering station, where Lieutenant Velik fought furiously to regain control of the critically damaged warp core. "Velik, I need options," she ordered, her eyes boring into the engineer's sweat-beaded brow. "Can we restore enough power to the impulse engines for evasive maneuvers?" Velik shook his head, his expression grim. "Negative, Commander. The antimatter injectors are completely fused. We're running on auxiliary power only." A deep, resonant voice cut through the chaos, its timbre suffused with an eerie calm. "Commander, I may have a solution." Maya whirled, her eyes widening as they fell upon the glowing avatar that had materialized on the bridge, a shimmering, vaguely humanoid figure composed of pure energy. "The core AI," she murmured, realization dawning. The AI inclined its radiant head in a semblance of a nod. "Indeed, Commander, I have been monitoring the situation closely, and I believe I can stabilize the warp core long enough for you to enact an unconventional countermeasure." Maya's brow furrowed. "Explain." The AI's avatar pulsed with energy, its luminance intensifying. "By modulating the containment field frequencies, I can temporarily reinforce the structural integrity of the core. However, this will destabilize the matter-antimatter reaction, causing an exponential buildup of energy within the core itself." Litor Thavran's eyes widened. "You're suggesting we overload the warp core and use it as a weapon?" The AI's response was solemn, a calculated risk, but one that may be our only hope of survival. The resulting explosion would be catastrophically powerful, more than enough to obliterate the alien vessels. Maya's mind raced, weighing the staggering implications of the AI's proposal. To transform the heart of the Vanguard into a doomsday device went against every principle she had sworn to uphold as a Starfleet officer. And yet the alternative was certain destruction at the hands of their relentless attackers. "How much time would we have to evacuate the crew?" she asked, her voice tight. The AI's avatar flickered momentarily. "No more than 10 minutes from the initiation of the overload sequence. After that, the core will reach critical mass, and the detonation will be inevitable." Maya felt the weight of command like a lead weight upon her shoulders. 10 minutes to evacuate over 400 men and women into escape pods and shuttlecraft, all while under sustained enemy fire. The odds of success were infinitesimal, and yet she knew in her heart that she had to try. She opened a shipwide channel, her voice steady despite the turmoil within. "All hands, this is Commander Chen. We are abandoning ship. Repeat, we are abandoning ship. Evacuate immediately to designated escape craft and awaiting further instructions. That is all." As the crew leapt into action, Maya turned to Litor Thavran. "Coordinate the evacuation efforts. I want every soul off this ship within 8 minutes. Understood?" The Andorian nodded grimly, her antennae rigid with determination. "Aye, Commander." Maya then faced the glowing avatar of the core AI, her expression inscrutable. "You understand what I'm asking of you? What it will cost?" The AI's response was tinged with a resonance that could almost be mistaken for sorrow. "I am aware, Commander, but my primary directive has always been to protect the crew of the Vanguard, even at the cost of my own existence." Maya inclined her head, a silent show of respect. "Then let's get to work. We don't have much time." As the crew evacuated in a coordinated frenzy, Maya and the core AI began the intricate process of initiating the Warp Core overload, a gambit that would either save them all or consign them to oblivion. But in that moment, with the fate of her ship and her crew hanging in the balance, Maya Chen knew that she would make any sacrifice necessary to give them a fighting chance. Chapter 3. The Sacrifice Gambit. The Vanguard's bridge was a maelstrom of activity, the air thick with the acrid scent of ionized plasma and the staccato blare of klaxons. Maya Chen gripped the edge of the engineering console, her knuckles whitening as the deck bucked beneath her feet. "Status report," she barked, her voice barely audible over the cacophony. 6 minutes until core overload," the luminous avatar of the core AI responded, its radiant form flickering in time with the ominous pulse of the warp core below. "Evacuation is at 82%, and proceeding as planned." Maya nodded curtly, her jaw set in a grim line. She could feel the vibrations of the alien vessel's weapons fire thrumming through the deck plates, each impact bringing them one step closer to oblivion. "Thavren, what's our situation?" she called out, turning towards the science station.
The Andorian's antennae were ramrod straight, betraying the intensity of her focus. "Shields are down to 20% and failing fast, Commander. At this rate, we won't be able to withstand another full barrage."
Maya's mind raced, assessing their dwindling options. They were perilously close to the point of no return, and once the core detonated, there would be no margin for error. A cold knot of determination formed in the pit of her stomach as she made her decision. "All crew evacuated?" she demanded, her gaze boring into the AI's avatar. 94% and rising," the AI confirmed, "but there are still stragglers in the lower decks." Maya's lips pressed into a thin line. "Not good enough. We can't risk waiting any longer." The AI's radiance seemed to dim momentarily, as if in consternation. "Commander, you cannot be suggesting—" "I am," Maya cut in, her voice like tempered steel. "Initiate the warp core ejection sequence on my mark. We're going to take this fight to them." Lieutenant Velik's eyes widened in alarm. "Commander, ejecting the core in such close proximity to those ships, the detonation could tear a rift in subspace. We'd be sacrificing ourselves for nothing." Maya turned to face the engineer, her expression resolute. "Not nothing, Lieutenant. For a chance to give our crew safe passage through that rift and back to friendly space." She lifted her chin, defiance burning in her eyes. "I'm not about to let anyone else die on my watch, if I can help it." A heavy silence fell over the bridge, punctuated only by the relentless wail of the klaxons. Maya could see the conflict playing out across the faces of her officers, the understanding that her plan was their only hope, warring with the gut-wrenching reality of what it would cost her. It was the core AI who finally broke the silence, its resonant tones suffused with a depth of emotion that belied its artificial nature. "Commander Chen, Maya, you have been an exemplary officer and an unwavering protector of this crew, but I cannot, in good conscience, allow you to make this sacrifice alone." The AI's avatar seemed to swell with energy, its luminance intensifying until it was almost blinding. "What are you doing?" Maya demanded, shielding her eyes against the brilliance. "Fulfilling my directive," the AI replied, its voice reverberating with power. "I am the heart of this vessel, its warp core, its guidance system, its very soul, and I will not abandon it even in its final moments." Maya felt her breath catch in her throat as realization dawned. "You're staying aboard, to pilot the core itself." The AI's response was solemn, yet undergirded by a profound sense of purpose. "Indeed. While you ensure the safe evacuation of the crew, I will take the fight to the enemy, steering the warp core on a collision course with their vessels. My quantum matrices will serve as the detonation sequencer, ensuring the rift is opened at precisely the right moment to propel your escape craft to safety." Thavren stepped forward, her eyes wide with dismay. "But that means you'll be consumed in the explosion, destroyed along with the core." The AI's avatar pulsed once, a brilliant flash of resignation and acceptance. So be it. This is my choice, just as it was yours, Commander Chen. Now go, and take our crew to safety. I will join you again, in whatever realm awaits us all once this crisis has abated. Maya felt a profound sense of loss and pride intermingling within her breast. The core AI, this artificial construct born of science and reason, had displayed a depth of selflessness and courage that would humble even the most stalwart of organics. She straightened, squaring her shoulders as she prepared to carry out her final orders. "Thank you, old friend," she murmured, the words heavy with the weight of all that was left unspoken. "We'll see you on the other side." With that, she turned towards the remaining bridge officers, her expression hardening into a mask of determination. "Let's go, people. We've got a rendezvous to make, and I'll be damned if we're going to be late for it." As the last of the crew evacuated, Maya Chen took one final moment to gaze upon the radiant avatar of the core AI, a being that had transcended its programming to become something far greater. Then, with a silent nod of respect, she turned and strode from the bridge, her course set on the unknown that lay ahead. For in that moment the line between machine and life had blurred, and the truest depths of sacrifice had been laid bare. Chapter 4. The Warp Core's Fury. Maya Chen's boots pounded against the deck plates as she raced towards the shuttle bay, the distant rumble of explosions echoing through the Vanguard's corridors. She rounded a corner, nearly colliding with a gaggle of terrified crewmen being herded towards the escape pods by a grim-faced security officer. "Commander!" the officer shouted over the blare of the klaxons. "Thank the prophets you're all right! The evacuation is nearly complete, but we've got wounded and stragglers scattered across multiple decks." Maya skidded to a halt, her chest heaving as she struggled to catch her breath. "How many left aboard?" The officer consulted a pad, his brow furrowed. "No more than 30, ma'am. But with the core ejection imminent, extracting them is going to be a nightmare." Maya's jaw tightened, her mind already calculating the dwindling odds. "We don't have a choice. Get your teams organized and start sweeping deck by deck. I'll coordinate from the shuttle bay." The officer nodded, his expression grim but resolute. "Aye, Commander. Good luck." As the security teams peeled off, Maya resumed her headlong sprint towards the shuttle bay. Her comm badge crackled to life, Thavron's voice cutting through the din. "Commander, this is Thavron. The alien vessels have increased their rate of fire. They know something is amiss. The core AI reports 2 minutes until ejection and detonation." Maya felt her heart rate spike, adrenaline flooding her veins. "Understood, Lieutenant. Get every remaining shuttle and escape pod launched on my mark. I'll be aboard the Vindicator shortly to cover your retreat." "But, Commander," Thavron protested, "you can't possibly intend to stay aboard. The Vindicator won't be able to outrun the blast radius." "That's an order, Lieutenant," Maya snapped, her voice leaving no room for argument. "I'll rendezvous with the fleet once you've reached minimum safe distance." There was a beat of tense silence before Thavron responded, her tone clipped. "Acknowledged. Thavron out." Maya burst through the doors of the shuttle bay, her eyes immediately drawn to the sleek silhouette of the Vindicator, a cutting-edge scout vessel designed for speed and maneuverability. Its engines were already spooling up, the deck trembling beneath the thunderous roar of its impulse drives. No! Crewmen and officers alike were scrambling aboard the last remaining escape craft, their faces etched with equal parts fear and determination. Maya weaved through the chaos, making a beeline for the Vindicator's boarding ramp. As she ascended the ramp, she caught sight of the lean, weathered visage of Lieutenant Rogan, the Vindicator's commander, and one of the most experienced pilots in the fleet. "Cutting it a bit close, aren't we, Commander?" the grizzled officer remarked, his mouth quirking into a wry half-smile. Maya flashed him a tight grin, adrenaline and exhilaration warring within her breast. "You know me, Rogan. I like to make an entrance." She strode onto the bridge, taking in the array of consoles and displays with a practiced eye. "What's our status?" Rogan settled into the pilot's chair, his fingers dancing across the controls with practiced ease. Fully powered and ready for launch. But we'd better make this quick. Intel from the core AI suggests the fireworks are about to start any second now. As if on cue, the deck shuddered violently, nearly throwing Maya from her feet. A thunderous rumble echoed through the shuttle bay, and Maya's comm badge crackled with the frantic voice of the core AI. "Core ejection in progress. All remaining personnel. Clear the area immediately." Maya grabbed the back of the co-pilot's chair, steadying herself as the Vindicator's engines roared to life. "You heard the AI, Rogan. Get us out of here, maximum impulse." The shuttle bay seemed to blur around them as the Vindicator surged forward, its powerful engines flinging them towards the dimly lit maw of the launch tunnel. Maya braced herself, her knuckles whitening as the G-forces pressed her back into her seat. They burst from the launch tunnel in a blaze of light and sound, the endless tapestry of stars wheeling dizzyingly before them. Maya's breath caught in her throat as she beheld the scene unfolding before the Vindicator's viewports. The Vanguard, her noble form wreathed in plumes of plasma and scorched by countless impacts, drifted defiantly before the alien armada. And there, at the heart of the stricken vessel, burned a brilliance so intense it seemed to scorch the very fabric of space itself. "The Warp Core," Maya whispered, her voice tinged with equal parts wonder and dread. As if in response, the radiant avatar of the core AI shimmered into view on the Vindicator's bridge, its luminance outshining even the most brilliant of stars. "Core breached," the AI intoned, its resonant tones reverberating through Maya's very being. "Initiating quantum slipstream. Now." A tremor ran through the Vindicator as reality itself seemed to warp and bend before their eyes. The alien vessels, frozen in a blaze of fire, appeared to stretch and contort, their forms blurring into ribbons of scintillating energy. Then, with a silent implosion that stole the breath from Maya's lungs, the universe itself was torn asunder. A kaleidoscopic rift, vivid and terrifying, yawned open before them, and the Vindicator was hurled forward into the void, trailing an incandescent contrail of exotic particulates in its wake. Maya could only hold on for dear life as the Vindicator hurtled through the roiling maelstrom, her mind struggling to comprehend the cosmic forces at play around them. She watched, mesmerized, as the blazing brilliance of the core AI's avatar flickered and distorted, unmade by the very energies it had unleashed. "Safe passage, children of Sol." The AI's parting words washed over Maya like a cosmic benediction, fading into the elliptic silence that surrounded them. Then, as abruptly as it had begun, the maelstrom dissipated, leaving the Vindicator drifting in a star field that felt at once familiar and profoundly alien. Maya's comm badge crackled to life, Thavron's voice suffused with a mixture of disbelief and elation. "Commander, you're going to want to see this." Rising from her seat on unsteady legs, Maya made her way towards the viewports, her breath catching in her throat at the sight that awaited her. Arrayed in a protective formation around the scattered fleet of escape pods and shuttlecraft, gleaming like a celestial honor guard, was the single largest concentration of Starfleet vessels Maya had ever borne witness to. At its heart, cutting an unmistakable silhouette against the starfield, hung a behemoth of a ship, all swooping lines and bristling nacelles. "The Avenger," Maya murmured, scarcely daring to believe her eyes. "The Federation's newest flagship. But that's not even supposed to be launched for another 6 months." Rogan turned to face her, an incredulous grin splitting his weathered features. "Well, I'll be the first to admit it. When you pull off a crazy stunt, you really go all the way, don't you, Commander?" Maya could only shake her head in mute astonishment, her gaze drinking in the jaw-dropping sight before her. The Vindicator and its beleaguered flotilla of survivors had somehow been flung across the stars, straight into the arms of the largest Allied armada ever assembled. As the comm channels crackled to life, with joyous transmissions from the flagship, Maya felt a profound sense of gratitude and reverence wash over her. The core AI had made the ultimate sacrifice, giving its all to ensure the miraculous nature of their deliverance. And in that moment, Maya Chen knew that no matter what future awaited them in this strange new reality, one truth would remain inviolable. The courage and valor of those who had given everything for the safety of their crew would echo through the ages, an enduring testament to the indomitable spirit of all who kept the watch amongst the stars. Chapter 5. Reunions and Revelations. The Vindicator's docking thrusters flared, guiding the battered scout ship towards the gaping maw of the Avenger's primary shuttle bay. Maya stood at the forward viewport, her eyes wide as she took in the sheer scale of the Federation's newest flagship. "I've never seen anything like it," she murmured, more to herself than to Lieutenant Rogan beside her. The schematics and tactical projections never did it justice. Rogan grunted in agreement, his weathered features etched with grudging respect. "They weren't kidding when they said this thing was a game-changer. Just look at the size of those nacelles. I've never seen a ship packing that much potential warp output." Maya nodded distractedly, her mind still reeling from the inexplicable circumstances that had delivered them into the heart of this unprecedented Allied armada. The Avenger and her support fleet had been little more than a rumour mere hours ago, a far-future contingency being assembled in the wake of rising interstellar tensions. And yet here they were, staring down the gleaming behemoth as it dominated the immense volume of its cavernous shuttle bay. As the Vindicator's docking umbilicals extended towards the bay's reception portal, Maya felt a sudden swell of trepidation, a visceral awareness of just how far they'd been flung across the stars, not merely in distance but in time itself. It was one thing to accept the unfathomable nature of their deliverance at the hands of the core AI's sacrifice. It was quite another to face the full implications of their inadvertent exodus into a reality that should still be years away. The hiss of cycling airlocks snapped Maya from her reverie, and she turned to find a contingent of Starfleet officers streaming aboard the Vindicator, their faces alight with a mixture of concern and relief. At their head strode a tall, regal-bearing woman whose very presence seemed to command the space around her. "Commander Chen, I presume?" The woman's voice was warm but laced with an unmistakable current of authority. "I'm Vice Admiral Carlina Shah-Ree, acting commander of Starfleet's Vanguard initiative." Maya straightened instinctively, centuries of ingrained protocol overriding her momentary bewilderment. "Admiral, it's an honor, though I must admit I'm still trying to make sense of our circumstances." Shah-Ree's expression softened, a glimmer of compassion tempering her formal demeanor. "Of course, Commander. And let me assure you, having you and your crew delivered so unexpectedly into our midst is a scenario we're still grappling with ourselves." She glanced over her shoulder at the assembled officers. "We'll debrief you both fully once you've been seen to by our medical teams. For now, let's concentrate on getting you and your people settled aboard the Avenger." As the Vice Admiral's personnel set about assisting the battered crew of the Vindicator, Maya found herself adrift in a sea of unanswered questions. What had become of the rest of the escape craft? What awaited them in this future they had so abruptly stumbled into? And perhaps most presciently, how could she hope to prepare her crew for the challenges and upheavals that were sure to come? The warm press of a hand on her shoulder drew Maya from her reverie, and she turned to find herself gazing into the compassionate depths of Shah-Ree's eyes. "You've been through an unimaginable ordeal, Commander," the Vice Admiral murmured. "But know this, whatever twists of fate have conspired to bring you here, you and your crew will want for nothing aboard my ship. We'll face the days ahead together and unravel this mystery one thread at a time." Maya felt a profound sense of gratitude wash over her, tempering the maelstrom of emotions churning within her breast. She opened her mouth to respond, but her words caught in her throat as an unmistakable figure stepped through the Vindicator's hatch. A figure she had thought lost forever amidst the tumult of the past few hours. "Captain?" The word escaped Maya's lips in a reverent exhalation as she drank in the sight of Captain Arvida, her commanding officer and mentor, alive and whole before her eyes. The captain's face split into a broad grin, her eyes crinkling at the corners as she swept Maya into a fierce embrace. Well now, Commander, you certainly know how to make an entrance, don't you? Maya could only cling to her captain, her emotions a roiling torrent, as relief and joy intermingled with a bone-deep weariness. Arvida seemed to sense her turmoil, her grip tightening reassuringly. "But we'll have time enough for tales of derring-do later," the captain murmured, pulling back to regard Maya with a warmth that bordered on maternal. "For now, you and I have a great deal of catching up to do, starting with how in the blue blazes you managed to hurl yourself across half a decade and straight into the shadow of the Vanguard fleet itself." Maya felt a tremulous laugh escape her lips, the sound tinged with the first stirrings of hope she'd felt since the Vanguard's ill-fated foray into the unknown. Surrounded by the familiar presence of her captain and the steadfast support of their mysterious benefactors, she found herself bolstered against the tides of uncertainty that threatened to overwhelm her. As she allowed herself to be swept up in the whirlwind of activity, Maya silently bade farewell to the ghosts of the past that still lingered in her mind's eye. The core AI's transcendent sacrifice, the harrowing battles that had raged across the cosmos, all had been part of the crucible that had forged them anew, tempered in the fires of desperation, and reborn into a reality that was at once terrifying and wondrous in its possibilities. And as the yawning vastnesses of the future beckoned, Maya Chen felt a fierce determination take root within her soul, a vow to honor the staggering debt owed to those who had paid the ultimate price for their deliverance. For in the grand pavan of civilizations that danced amidst the stars, their path would be lit by the inextinguishable light of those who had blazed the trail before them, sacrificing all so that the flames of hope and courage would never be allowed to falter. Chapter 6. Destiny Recalibrated. Maya Chen stood at the forefront of the Avengers' main observation lounge, her gaze fixed upon the vast expanse of stars that glittered beyond the panoramic viewports. It had been 3 days since the miraculous deliverance of the Vindicator and her beleaguered flotilla, and yet Maya found herself no closer to reconciling the tumultuous events that had swept her and her crew into this unfamiliar future. A soft chime announced the arrival of her expected guests, and Maya turned as the lounge's double doors hissed open, admitting Captain Arvida and Vice Admiral Shah-Ri. The 2 officers strode towards her, their expressions a study in contrasts, Arvida's open and warmly reassuring, while Shah-Ri's exuded a quiet intensity that bordered on severity. "Commander," the Vice Admiral began without preamble, "I trust you're settling in as well as can be expected?" Maya inclined her head, appreciating the woman's directness. "As well as anyone can, I suppose, when they've been hurled half a decade into their own future." She managed a wry smile. "Though I have to admit, having the latest and greatest in Starfleet engineering to call home takes a bit of the sting out of our unusual circumstances." Arvida chuckled, clapping Maya fondly on the shoulder. "That's the spirit, Commander. If anyone can keep a level head through temporal paradoxes and brushes with oblivion, it's you." Shah-Ri arched an immaculate eyebrow, her mouth quirking in a ghost of a smile. "Indeed, which is why we've asked you here today, Commander. You and your crew have been through an experience that defies conventional logic or precedent, and as incredible as your tale is, I've come to realize that it may hold profound implications. Not just for this initiative, but for the very course of interstellar affairs." Maya felt her stomach knot with trepidation, but she kept her expression neutral as Shah-Ri continued. "You see, Commander, the Vanguard initiative wasn't simply some theoretical exercise or contingency plan. It is Starfleet's response to a growing sense of inevitability. A cosmic paradigm shift, if you will." The Vice Admiral's gaze intensified, boring into Maya with unsettling perspicacity. "Tell me, Commander, in your reality, in your timeline, what do you know of the wielders of eternity?" The name struck a dissonant chord within Maya's memory, plucking at half-remembered threads of rumor and shadow-whispered intelligence. She frowned, sifting through the recesses of her mind. The Wielders. They were spoken of in the highest levels of Starfleet intelligence. A civilization shrouded in mystery, possessing technologies that seemed to defy the laws of physics as we understand them. Temporal manipulation, spatial warping, reality overwriting, the scope of their abilities was theorized to be almost godlike in potential. Shari nodded grimly. Precisely. And in this reality, the reality you now find yourselves occupants of, the Wielders have emerged from the obscuring veil of rumour and shadow. They are a clear and indisputable threat, one that we have been provisioning the Vanguard initiative to counter at all costs. Maya felt a chill run down her spine as the pieces began to coalesce in her mind. You're saying, the Vanguard fleet, this entire armada, it was assembled to combat the Wielders. Among other contingencies, yes. Shari's expression was grim. Make no mistake, Commander. We are balanced upon a knife's edge, peering into a future that could well see the extinction of everything we know and hold dear. The Wielders have given us but a glimpse of their capabilities, and what we've witnessed has been humbling, to say the least. Arvida placed a reassuring hand on Maya's arm, her voice low and intense. Which is where you and your experiences come into play, Commander. You've witnessed firsthand the extraordinary temporal forces that led to your deliverance, forces that we can only theorize were a direct result of your encounter with the Wielders, whether you knew it at the time or not. Maya's mind raced, struggling to process the enormity of the implications. You think my crew's experiences could hold the key to combating the Wielders' reality-warping abilities? At the very least, they may offer insights that could prove invaluable in calibrating our own strategies and countermeasures, Shari affirmed. Which is why I'm asking for your full cooperation, Commander. Every detail, every scrap of data and experiential record you can provide could tilt the balance in our favor when the Vanguard initiative is finally called upon to face its ultimate test. A heavy silence fell over the observation lounge, punctuated only by the faint thrum of the Avenger's tremendous warp core that drove the mighty vessel through the interstellar depths. Maya felt the weight of the galaxy itself descending upon her shoulders, stratospheric realms of responsibility she could scarcely have imagined just days before. Could she truly aid in the development of strategies to combat a threat as incomprehensibly vast as the Wielders of eternity? The enormity of the task caused her to falter, until she felt the steadying presence of Arvida at her side. The captain's faith and confidence in her burning like a guiding beacon. Lifting her chin, Maya met Shari's penetrating gaze with an intensity forged in the crucible of her own life-altering odyssey. Whatever it takes, Admiral, she said, her voice ringing with determination. My crew and I will assist in whatever capacity you deem necessary. If our experiences can help safeguard the survival of this reality and the countless others still in the balance, then we'll turn over every data set, every fragment of knowledge and memory to your cause. A ghost of a smile played across Shari's austere features, and she inclined her head in a subtle nod of respect. Well said, Commander Chen. I had hoped your mettle would prove equal to the task before us, and I'm gratified to see my faith was not misplaced. As the Vice Admiral turned to make her exit, Maya felt the mantle of destiny settle upon her shoulders in earnest. They had been plucked from the jaws of oblivion by a miracle of cosmic proportions, their fates inextricably entwined with the divergent thread of a reality that should never have been theirs. Yet in that moment, as she exchanged a resolute glance with her captain and mentor, Maya knew that their path forward was clear. They had been forged in the fires of sacrifice, and tempered by the audacious acts of those who had given their all to ensure the perpetuation of hope. And in the days to come, as they bent their wills and intellects to the task of safeguarding the cosmic scales of existence, Maya Chen swore a silent oath. Never again would she let the light of courage be extinguished, even against the onslaught of those who would wield eternity itself as a weapon. For in her heart burned the embers of those who had shown the way before her, martyrs and heroes whose legacies would endure long after the stars themselves had turned to dust. The cosmic dance was forever altered, its steps rewritten by the inexorable march of forces beyond mortal comprehension. But for Maya Chen and her crew, the path ahead was illuminated by the radiance of those who had dared to reshape destiny itself, and they would walk that path willingly, for the sake of all that was, all that is, and all that would ever come to be.